to the final episode of the series Decolonizing the Mind. This is the last episode. I started the series on October 29, 2023, 2 years ago. And initially, I tried to explain October 7th and its aftermath and put it into a decolonial context. Now, the first few days I've done it on a daily basis and then on a weekly basis, and I managed it for a few years. Tried to keep the weekly rhythm, but there are now new challenges on my way. Uh, I'm going to invest a lot of time in building this international network for building a new world civilizations and network of activists, intellectuals, think tanks, university, anti-imperialist government. I'm going to spend time in helping setting up the international publishing house, Amrit Publishers. I myself have a few books in planning, apart from the book which I mentioned, which is already done now with Mohammed Marandi on explaining and understanding the Iranian Islamic Revolution in Iran. And I'll still be engaged in lectures and articles, and all these things is becoming so much that the weekly rhythm of putting the podcast out, meaning doing the research on a weekly basis, the data collection, the analysis, the presentation, the distribution, all this take times. And given the importance of all the other works, I decided to stop with a series. I might do now and then incidental uh, uh, podcasts, but I'm not sure when and how, but it certainly won't be a regular thing. So it is fitting for me to explain what I'm going to do in the coming years that I've left on this earth, to spend time on the struggle which I've been engaged since I was 16, 17. Um, so I will explain where we are in world history, where are we heading, and what is our role in directing this development. The bigger picture is obviously the fall of the West and the rise of the rest. Look at it economically today. China is now the largest economy in the world, measured by GDP, PPP. BRICS is becoming an economic powerhouse. EU is shooting itself in the foot with Russia. The boycott of buying Russia's oil and gas has an effect on the prices in Europe. US desperately tries to regain economic strength through boycott and tariffs. And tomorrow, the economics of the future is that the countries with the largest population will become the largest economy. We don't see it yet, but that is in the making, and China will play a leading role with its initiative of BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. So if you look at the 10 largest countries, India, China, United States, obviously they are playing a huge role already. But of the others, you don't see it yet, except of Brazil. Brazil, with 230 million people, is playing an important role in BRICS. But you don't see yet Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh. You see Russia, obviously, with 144 million, and Ethiopia. You don't see that. So, but these are the 10 largest countries in the world population, and Iran is about 90 million. But economically, the large population, once the technology is there, once the infrastructure is building, then these countries will become economic powerhouses, like China, like India, like Brazil. Now, where are we militarily now? The war in Ukraine was meant to be a strategic military defeat for Russia That was the purpose of NATO. It's not about Zelensky. Zelensky is a clown, it's just instrument, but NATO tried to lure Russia into a situation where they thought they could inflict a strategic defeat. And now they have no other options to accept a strategic defeat or go into adventurism of a nuclear war. But the reality on the ground is that they are being defeated now. And then Western Asia. The genocide in Gaza has become the prelude for a military attack on the main player, Iran. Western Asia is not primarily about Palestine. Obviously, Palestine is in the news, the genocide of Gaza is in the news, but the strategic goal of Israel and of the West, led by the United States, is the final defeat of the Islamic Revolution. And that is the gateway to controlling Western Asia. And all these negotiations about nuclear weapons were just a decoy. And the Iranians have been very smart in the negotiations, and some had the illusion that the negotiations would lead to something. But at the end of the day, they saw nowhere out than attack Iran in the hope that the final defeat will be there. But it backfired. The Islamic Revolution is alive and kicking, so they have no other option to accept a strategic defeat, which means ultimately the dissolution of the state of Israel, the apartheid state of Israel, or try a nuclear attack on Iran. And then we see the preparation of war by the US in Asia around Taiwan. So we live in a dangerous world. And then technologically, we were used that the US and the EU were leading in technological innovations. That's not the case anymore. You see, China is very advanced, but India and Russia are there, and even Iran, a smaller country, but technologically and intellectually, Iran is very far. And also you see developments in Brazil, technological developments in Brazil in the energy sector. So we will hear from these countries as leaders in technology. Now let's look at the situation now politically. And you see more and more the Global South is taking the initiative in reshaping the world. BRICS on the economic level, the Shanghai Cooperation on the level of military security. And you see that the Global South is offering a growing critique of international bodies controlled by the US, like the United Nations, like the International Atomic Energy Agency, like the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. All these organizations are becoming tools controlled by the US, and the critique is there. Now the Global South has some experience trying to carve out an independent road in the world, starting with the 1955 Bandung Conference, and then 6 years later with the foundation of the non-aligned movement in Belgrade, Yugoslavia in 1961. In the Bandung Conference, 10 principles were articulated for the future. One was the first, respect for fundamental human rights and for the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations, having been through the experience of colonialism and occupation of land, recognition and the equality of all races and equality of all nations, large and small, having been through the racism of colonialism, abstention from intervention and interference in the internal affairs of another country, which the imperialist countries do constantly, respect for the right of each nation to defend itself singly or collectively in conformity with the Charter of the United Nations, abstention from the use of arrangement of collective defense to serve the particular interests of any of the great powers, and abstention by any country from exerting pressures on the other countries. And then we are talking about the Cold War, where the two great powers were the Soviet Union and the United States, and the Bandung tried to carve out a middle of road, another road at least. Refraining from acts or threats of aggression or the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any country, settlement of all international dispute by peaceful means such as negotiations, conciliations, arbitration or judicial settlement, as well as other peaceful means of the parties' own choice, in conformity with the Charter of the United Nations. Promotion of mutual interest and cooperation, respect for justice. These are the things that the Bandung Conference were talking about. And if you look at the non-alignment movement, they formulated criteria for membership. These are independent foreign policy. The country must have adopted an independent policy based on the coexistence of states with different political and social systems and a non-alignment, or it must have shown a tendency to favor social policy. Support for national independence movement. The country must consistently support moves for national independence, and this reflects the now strong anti-colonial stance. Mind you, in 1961, a lot of these countries, especially in Africa, were still under colonial rule. In 1966, the big wave of national independence, political independence came. No membership in military alliances, meaning neither the Soviet Union nor the United States. The country should not be a member of a multilateral military alliance concluded in the context of the Great Power conflict, NATO, Warsaw Pact. No bilateral military agreement tied to great powers. If the country had a bilateral military agreement with a great power or was a member of a regional defense pact, that agreement or pact must not have been concluded deliberately in the context of great power conflicts. No foreign military bases. If the country had granted military bases to a foreign power, the concession must not have been made in the context of a great power conflict. Now, these are things on paper. Obviously, the reality has been much different. Looking at the list of the participants of the Bandung Conference, you will see unlikely members. North Vietnam and South Vietnam were two separate states, and you know they are now one state. And you could see that Iran under the Shah was a member. Japan, which is maybe geographically yes, but politically certainly not part of the global south, more the global north. Countries like Jordan were totally controlled by the West. But you have the independent country like India, and Nehru was very progressive. People's Republic of China. So yeah, if you look at the non-alignment movement, it has 120 member states, very different politically. There are 54 members in Africa, 39 in Asia, 26 in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 1 in Europe, Belarus. Russia has an observer status, is not a member of the non-aligned movement. So you see that with the Bandung and the non-aligned movement, the global South has made efforts to develop an independent movement. But the West has control over many elites in the global South and is always trying to block independent policies. And that control is in level of economics, military, technological, and even cultural with media and education. Now, the decolonial movement now has come up with a new strategy, which is cultural decolonization. And so colonization and a horizon where we go is not primarily based on economic, political, or military concept, but on a cultural concept, and that concept is civilization. And now a lot of talk is about the multipolar world, and the concept of a pole or polarity refers to the existence of several powerful states or blocs, each possessing substantial economic and military influence. But the concept of civilization is different. A civilization is a society with a specific cultural base. The cultural base is the most distinctive feature of civilization because it has a view on what kind of societies that civilization wants to build, what kind of vision it has for the future of mankind, where it stands now, where it wants to go. It defines the identity of that civilization. On the basis of these views, it set up the institutions for knowledge production and distribution and other institutions in the economic, political, social, and geographic dimension. There have been many civilizations in the history of humankind. Western civilization is the only civilization in human history that has a truly global reach and dominated every part of the world through universities as media through colonialism. Its knowledge base has extended to countries and regions that were not even in its direct political and military control, like Japan, Iran, China. It suppressed other civilizations in order to become hegemonic and universal. In the first 150 years of colonialism, its knowledge base was Christian theology, but since 1650, the European Enlightenment has become the knowledge base of the colonial world civilization, and this is a civilization of genocide, injustice, oppression, and exploitation. So, we start with the premise that a better world is possible, and that better world is not just an economic or political different world. It's a new world civilization, and that's the horizon for social movements and anti-imperialist governments. So this should be on the agenda for the coming decades. How to build a new world civilization. And these are two aspects involved. One, how to build a knowledge base for new world civilizations. How will the philosophical foundation of a new knowledge base look like? What is different from the old one? How will the different distinctive disciplines look like? How will the economic theory look like? Is it based on the European Enlightenment? It's a new economic theory. How do we reconstruct this discipline? What role does the knowledge production play in the global south? And what are the distinctive features of its political and economic theory? And the second aspect is how do you translate this knowledge into practice? What does a new economic theory tell us about how to organize the economy in a country, region, or the world? So when we talk about civilizations, we don't take the UN approach, which in 2005 was articulated by Kofi Annan with the sponsorship of the government of Spain and Turkey. And they established the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, with the primary goal is to galvanize international action against extremism, mainly being, Islam, by fostering intercultural, interreligious dialogue and cooperation. It serves as a platform for open and respectful dialogue between diverse cultures and religions and society. It aims to reduce polarization, counter stereotype, and build bridges of understanding. This is fine, but it leads to nothing. It doesn't address the oppressive nature of the current world civilization. Building a new world civilization is not primarily a dialogue, but a struggle. The struggle is about the critique of the old civilization and the creation of something new. And dialogue is an instrument of struggle, not a replacement. Independent intellectuals can play an important role in the critique by challenging key Eurocentric intellectuals and their media. I distinguish 5 layers of how to build a new world civilization. One layer is the layer of government and state institutions. Progressive and anti-imperialist governments who are currently involved in shaping the multipolar world, they can be instrumental in shaping the transition to a new world civilization because they control the institutions that produce and disseminate knowledge. Governments can develop policy for how these institutions can contribute in reconstructing knowledge and the policy implication of this reconstruction. Then, even if the government is not active, the universities and other academic institutions are responsible for production and dissemination of knowledge in the society. The media brings this knowledge to the population. So even if the government doesn't do anything, the universities and the media can do something, and especially the alternative media can play a role in reconstructing knowledge and in distributing knowledge and the knowledge that has been reconstructed. Think tanks are increasingly playing an important role in shaping opinion. They are often part of lobby groups and have close ties with the dominant media, but social movements have their own think tanks and their own thinkers, and they should be the driving force in changing the society, and they know how to translate change, how to translate knowledge for change in action. And then there are independent intellectuals, individuals not necessarily tied to academia who produce new knowledge, and history is full of those thinkers who are often linked to social movements. So, thank you for your attention and your patience, and I don't know when, but somewhere in the future I hope to meet you again.